Hey guys, here we are at Auckland Harley-Davidson, Auckland Triumph, and today we are checking out the Moto Morini Alltrhike.
All I want is the perfect unicorn. All I want's a perfect motorbike power that excites, no modes, throttle light, lead cheap, super light. All I want's a perfect unicorn. All I want, man. All I want, man.
Thanks everybody for tuning in and welcome to Biking with Campbell. Today I'm reviewing the Moto Morini Alltrhike. As per usual, this review will start with my raw riding impressions, and then we'll do the good, the bad and the ugly at the end, and then an overview and maybe a look at the similarities and how this differs from the CFMOTO. Now, just a disclaimer, all of these thoughts and opinions are only my own. Auckland Triumph, Auckland Harley-Davidson had no say at all in this video. They haven't reviewed it or anything before you guys are seeing it. They're seeing it at the same time, and no money changed hands and yada yada yada. You know the drill. When I first heard about this bike and looked at the specs, I just thought that it was a CFMOTO 450 MT Ibex clone. It's got the same KYB suspension on the surface. It has a similar seat height and ground clearance. It's got the same motor in it. Seems to have the same brakes. Yeah, so very interesting. I figured that it would be a very, very similar bike and a very, very similar bike to ride. But I was very surprised, and the truth is way more complex than you'd think. I've been given a rundown on the electronics. They are quite fine-tunable in a way for a budget bike. I believe you can go in and change the settings on the ABS and the traction control separately, but I'm just going to be switching from the road mode to the off-road mode. Okay, standing position's pretty relaxed. Do feel quite close to the bars. Was pretty spoilt on that last ride on that Triumph Rally Pro. The position on that is just extraordinary. It's very soft off the beginning of the throttle and does need quite a few revs to pull away. I wonder if Mike set the lever up on this, because it's really easy to change gear, which is not the case that I've had with any other bike in these big ridiculous boots of mine. Yeah, standing position's good. Yeah, brakes are a little bit mushy. Back brake felt alright. Front brake's a little bit wooden. There's not a huge amount of leg room with the seat in the low position. And I'm sitting quite down and in the bike as opposed to on the bike. But that's okay. Swings and roundabouts. Quite nice to be able to get your foot down really easily. The screen is adjustable. At the moment it's on its out position. So instead of going up and down, it goes in and out. Which could be quite good, because then you don't have to worry about changing it when you're going to off-road. It's like, just leave it in the position that works for you when you're on the open road. So it's pretty comfortable. Now Mike has adjusted the suspension slightly. He's reduced the compression on the front a couple of clicks. So it's supposed to be thunderstorms today, so wish me luck with the weather. I've kind of tried to time it so I get the weather okay here, and then hit the good weather out in Whatapu, but I may well end up going through some rain. So far it feels very comfortable at suburban speeds. The suspension with these few clicks to soften it up has indeed done exactly that. So that's great. That means that adjustability on those forks isn't just there for show, it does actually do something. I've ridden bikes, much more expensive bikes than this, premium bikes with fully adjustable suspension that did very little when you adjusted it. you are going to be able to adjust this very easily with minor adjustments to move it closer to how you would like it to feel. No problem here filtering, I feel very comfortable, the bike is nice and balanced. No interference there from the TC when I was trying to accelerate hard. Now it is obviously perfectly dry. We will be testing this in its standard road mode on the gravel, because there will be riders who will want to know whether that traction control and ABS is going to work effectively and consistently in slipperier conditions, and just give them that extra confidence that they might need as riders dipping their toe into the off-road world. My understanding is that when you switch this into the Alltrhike mode, that not only does it switch the TC off and the rear ABS, but it does in fact switch the front ABS off. We think. I will be testing that. Yep, reasonably quick. Okay, let's merge. Lift. See if I can get up to motorway speeds. Everyone's going a bit slow. Okay, fifth, 6,000 Ks in fifth. Got plenty of revs on tap, so the final gearing must be different. It might have just been done with the final drive sprocket and the rear sprocket, but yeah, for this size motor, it definitely feels like at touring speeds you're going to have plenty of revs to do that. I can't really comment on the wind protection today because it is just stupidly windy, and the wind's hitting me from all sorts of directions, so it's very hard to know how the screen's working. Felt fine then on the motorway. Okay, let's see what this is like on a windy road, a windy, windy road. If you're looking at subtitles, I should say twisty road. If I'm just cruising, let's have a look at that. Steers really easily. Just no bar input at all is required. In fact, pretty sure I could just about steer this with no bar input at all, just by moving around in the seat a little bit, shifting my weight. Yeah, turns super duper easy. I am not touching the bars at all. Yeah, the minimal bar effort is needed to make this turn, as in zero, at these speeds anyway. That seems a bit different to how I remember the CFMOTO 450. Now, I can't imagine the chassis is different or the steering head angle is different, but that thing was quite hard to turn. When you're pushing on a little bit, I just noticed it was a little reluctant to turn. Yep, fourth gear up to 100 Ks, pretty easy peasy, not too much effort. So plenty there for overtaking. So, I'm enjoying my time on the little Alltrhike so far. The suspension is a little stiff, but the seat's quite comfortable, so that's good. It steers really easily and smoothly. The gearbox is super slick. Anyway, so we're going to do a brake test next. We'll see what it's like up the gravel road in its road mode. And then following that, we will switch it to its off-road mode, which I think is called Alltrhike mode. And we'll see what it's like with everything switched off. Cool. So we're just going to do a little brake test up here at the de-rigger, 70 kilometers an hour. We have all of the traction control, etc. on. Let's see how quickly this bad boy stops. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think the brakes are actually getting better. I'm just wondering if the pads were not quite bedded in. It's only got about 500 Ks on it, I think. 600 Ks maybe. Feels like it doesn't really matter which gear it's in. It seems to like kind of pull about the same. Power's very smooth and linear. There's no real bumps or drops in the throttle response. There's not much engine braking, which might be good for a beginner. Yeah, that's the TC coming in. So you can pop the front wheel up with the TC on, and then it kicks in. But that popped up really easily. I'm surprised. It's pulling nicely up here in second. I think we're going to be on the gravel in a few corners. Okay, now let's see what the TC's like here. No activation yet, but not a lot of loose gravel here, so oh yep, that's it there, I think, kicking in. Not super abruptly actually, I have to say, quite good. Yep, there it is there, little kick from the TC. Little chop of the throttle, not super nice that time. Yeah, there it goes again. Oh, I got a little bit of a tiny little bit of a rear wheel slide there. That was pretty funny. So I get, yeah, it's not bad. I'm not hating it. Feels good. Not too shabby. Not too shabby, Moto Morini. And what's the brakes like here? Pretty good on that really hard pat stuff. So if I can find some deeper gravel. Let's see. Maybe in here. Yeah, there it goes on. I mean, yeah. Cool. Yeah, that the rear brake pulses a lot, and that was the same experience on the CFMOTO. Oh, there you go. So a little bit sideways, and then the TC kicks in. So if you're a beginner rider, or a beginner rider as far as dipping your toe into off-road, that might be just a little bit of peace of mind for you. Yeah, overall I'm reasonably impressed. with the brakes in these conditions, specifically the ABS, and the TC is not exactly what I would call intrusive. It's only really kicking in where I'm trying to be really stupid across marbles. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a slow speed turn here. Now it is quite jerky on the throttle. Oh, I had to dab a foot twice. And what about slow speed? Balance. Yeah, slow speed balance is good. But just that turning was a little bit tricky, but I'm, sure you get well used to it. But it's not as instantly confidence inspiring as the NX 500. So ladies and gents, we are in the road mode, but I'm just using this button here where you can chop through the different modes. So that's road. This is a turn-by-turn signal thing. If you're going to attach your phone. And this is the Alltrhike mode now. So it's not in this mode yet. I have to press set. So I press set, and now it is in that mode. So if you look there, we've got the TC and the ABS is off. So it'll be interesting to see what this is like. To be honest, it didn't really bother me with the stuff on all that much. Now I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful. Yep, there's a little lock up without braking all that hard. So I definitely need to be a little bit careful, especially the marbles. Whoa! A little out of shape there. I'm sure the steering on this is twitchier than the CFMOTO, which makes it steer quicker, but yeah, it was kind of change slapping there. Well, beginning of one anyway, wasn't lock to lock or anything crazy, but yeah, it's not liking these corrugations all that much. Careful on that blind corner. Can't quite lock my backs of my legs into the seat, which I think was kind of handy to be able to do. So if you might have a better riding style than mine or a better body position, but I kind of rely on that to stop me from moving back. Whoa! And then thirds of it. Maybe the bars are slightly too high, which is probably good if you're just cruising, but when you're trying to get on standing up, just finding that I'm really having to grip the bars a lot to try and maintain my position, which I don't recall having to do on the Triumph, and I mean that would have been accelerating a lot quicker than this. Oh, yeah, she is choppy on the corrugations for sure. Now these tyres are the CSTs, same CSTs that are on the CFMOTO 450, and they're basically a Scorpion. Oh, good grief! They're basically a Scorpion Rally knockoff, and they're all right on this. They're good on the road, and they're not too bad on this. Now I haven't ridden on Scorpion Rally STRs, so I don't know what they're like on a metal road. Big shout out to Triumph and Auckland Harley Davidson for letting me take the Moto Morini for a test ride. Anyway, that's enough. Okay, welcome back to the studio. It's time for the good, the bad and the ugly. Let's start off with the good. If you want something a little bit original and different from the sea of people who have bought and are riding the CFMOTO 450 MT, the Ibex, to those people who are in the Northern Hemisphere, then this could be a good choice for you. It's got radically different looks and actually a different riding experience. The tank feels smaller and the bike feels narrower, and that's going to be great for people who are looking for a different riding experience from that classic adventure bike feel where the tank splays out and there's a sort of bigger fairing at the front. The fit and finish are typically excellent. It has fully adjustable suspension and there is lots of equipment. The standouts are it has back illuminated switchgear, it has connectivity for turn-by-turn signals, it's got a great menu system, really easy to navigate, it's got a centre stand, and there's an option for a heated seat. I was wrong in my review. I said that the bike that I was riding had the seat in its high position and then you could drop the seat into its low position, but actually that's not true. The seat isn't adjustable. There's 3 seats available. It comes in the stock seat, which I believe is the one that I was probably riding, and then it has a low seat and a high seat. One of the reasons I thought the seat was an adjustable seat is there's sort of this line, this kind of gap around the tank where it probably lines up perfectly with the higher seat, but when you got the lower seat on, it looks a bit more like my Africa Twin when the seat's in the low position. I was really impressed with the ABS. I thought it was really effective on the gravel. Even over the marbles, I thought it worked pretty well, and so it gave me a lot of confidence, as will the TC. You could just leave this in its road mode, ride onto a gravel road and not even worry about changing the settings. Initially I wasn't that impressed with the brakes, so yeah, after a bit of sort of aggressive use of the brakes, by the time I came back to the shop, they felt like they had way more feel and a lot more bite than when I went out, so actually they turned out to be pretty good. One of the accusations against the CFMOTO 450 MT is that it's a little bit low geared for touring, and that it's revving a little bit high on the motorway and freeways and that sort of thing. The Moto Morini Alltrhike, the gearing is a bit taller, and so you're pulling much more reasonable kind of revs when you're sitting at that sort of 100k to even to like 120. I think it would sit really comfortably at around that 115, 120k mark, which is going to be better for people in America and places where the highway speeds are like higher. I thought the motor was a little bit more punchy through the mid-range than, say, for example, the CFMOTO 450 MT. I know I keep comparing it to this bike, but the reason I'm doing that, and normally I wouldn't, I try not to compare bike with bike if I can avoid it, but in this particular case, because the equipment on these two bikes is so similar, I feel like it's worth pointing out where they differ, and this is one of the places they differ. So where the CFMOTO was really, really linear to the point of like putting you to sleep a little bit, I felt like the Alltrhike has just the smidge more punch through the mid-range, and I've just felt like that made it just a smidge more exciting to ride. Unfortunately, that comes at the cost of that bottom end. Especially with the different gearing. So with the Alltrhike being slightly taller geared and having a little more power in the mid-range, but possibly a little bit less power down low, you do find if you slow down too much, you're kind of having to slip the clutch to get it rolling again. In third, it was a little bit, I'd like to have those revs on. I reckon it's probably like over like 5,500 RPM, something like that. More positives, the steering. So whereas the CFMOTO was very stable and handled really well, but required a bit more effort to get it into the turns, the Alltrhike is just, the steering is so quick and requires such a small amount of effort to get it to turn. It's just really cool on a tight windy road. You're going to love it. It's actually pretty sporty, especially with the suspension, which is quite taut, and we'll talk about that more later. Obviously it is A2 compliant, or if you're in New Zealand it's learner legal, and as well as that it comes with a 3-year warranty. So there is a lot to like about the Moto Morini Alltrhike. Let's talk about the bad. The ergos for me didn't quite work. I felt like it was a little bit cramped when I was sitting. Just a reminder, you can buy that taller seat if you need to. Reach to the ground is really low, so if you're a shorter rider that's going to be good, and there's an even lower seat available. So there's quite a bit of variation there depending on who you are. But for me, at my 5'10", 100 kilos, 32-inch seam, I found the sitting position was a little bit cramped. As well as that, because it has that narrow profile, I felt like I didn't have as much weather protection as I might on something with a bigger fairing at the front. But you know, that swings and roundabouts. You can't have a very slim bike and then have tons of weather protection. You've got to have one or the other. The windscreen's actually, it seemed fine to me. One of the other things is I found the bars are fine when you're sitting. If you're doing sporty riding, yeah, it's fine, and those twisties and stuff, it feels good. You can move around on the bike pretty easy. It's quite nice. But as soon as you stand, I found for me the bars are a little bit high and a little bit close to the rider. And so what that means is as soon as you start to charge hard, you feel like you're kind of hanging off the bars. It's really hard to get over the top of them and get in a sort of an aggressive in charge kind of position that you would need if you're charging on a bit. Now obviously I ride like a bit of a tit, to be honest. I'm trying to like rip out of the corners as fast as I can and spin the back wheel and all that kind of silly stuff that doesn't actually result in really good forward progress and is just quite fatiguing. So if you're a much smoother rider, it's seriously, it's not going to be a problem for you. And like when I was going downhill and just kind of cruising on those gravel roads, I was actually going quite quick, but like fairly effortlessly. Another thing I didn't like is the tank to seat transition. Because the tank is quite slim and because of the shape of the seat, where I would normally bring my knees in where the tank meets the seat in that kind of waist, and hang on there with the backs of my legs at the very beginning of the seat, I couldn't do it. There's just, you can't kind of hang on to it with your legs there. So what that meant is that kind of constant like sort of falling back, and I found it really fatiguing, to be honest. Now bear in mind that the riding position is adjustable. There's actually 3 points on the top of that triple clamp, so you can move the bars closer or further away. They're in the middle position. So if you need more space, you can move them to the forward position, and that would allow you to also tweak the bars down a little bit more, and that's probably going to give you, make the bars feel lower, give you a bit more space between them, and sort of make it easier to get into that attack position. Also, in that kind of position, it might actually make it even more sporty. So you've got the bars turned down a little bit, you're a little more lean forward naturally, and you're sort of cranking along. Okay, now let's talk about the ugly. Okay, the suspension from my point of view is way too stiff. Interestingly, it works reasonably well on the road, especially for sporty riding, where the stiff suspension prevents that sort of pitching to and fro. But as soon as you go off-road, if you start to ride really aggressively across rough surfaces, it really starts to beat you up big time. And that very, very stiff suspension starts to rattle and hop over corrugations and other imperfections in the road, and that means that the tires are not in contact with the surface as much as they could be, and so I feel like you're also losing some traction there. Now it is adjustable. I've talked to Mike, he's adjusted the one that he purchased. He liked it so much he's actually bought one. And he has done quite a bit of suspension tweaking on the one that he's got, and I believe it's all been aimed in the direction of trying to soften that bike up. This is another area where I felt like it's really different from the CFMOTO. Whilst the 450 MT, the Ibex, feels really harsh on the road, as soon as you start riding really aggressively off-road, that seemed to come alive and seemed to float over stuff and felt really, I thought, quite comfortable. The other negative caused by what I suspect is a slightly different chassis is, whilst that stiff suspension and quick steering are nice on the road and make the bike really sporty, in those rough conditions it also makes the bike quite unstable, and so I didn't have quite the confidence that I would have liked. But I think that's a preference thing. Some people like a very twitchy, turny, kind of lively kind of bike. I prefer a really slightly softer suspended bike, something that's really stable, really forgiving, and then you can ride it, grab it by the scruff of the neck and ride it hard. Whereas with the Alltrhike, I felt like it much prefers a smooth, consistent kind of flowing control, not hard on the brakes, not hard on the gas, and you can carry speed on that thing really easily. But for me, I felt like it didn't work that well. Okay, let's talk about my final thoughts. This video has been really hard to make. It's been hard to write, and the Alltrhike has been really hard to wrap my head around. I think that's because I came with a bunch of preconceived notions. I thought that this was just a CFMOTO clone because so many of the equipment attached to this bike is the same, so seemingly the same suspension, but I suspect not. Seemingly the same motor, but in a different state of tune. Seemingly the same brakes, but I suspect a different control module or something like that, because fundamentally the TC and the ABS seems to be in a totally different state of tune, because I felt like they worked so much better on the Alltrhike than the CFMOTO. Ultimately, the CFMOTO 450 MT Ibex and the Moto Morini Alltrhike are seriously chalk and cheese. I seriously suggest that you ride both of them because they offer a completely different riding experience. Anyway, if by the time you've watched this you've ridden both, I would love to hear your riding experience. How did you feel the CFMOTO compared to the Moto Morini? If you've enjoyed this video and you found it helpful or informative, then please remember to like and share and subscribe, because that'll really help me out. It's quite challenging at the moment to make a success as a small YouTuber. And remember, if you're in Auckland and you go into Auckland Triumph, Auckland Harley Davidson, and you're thinking of buying the Alltrhike or anything else in there, please tell them that you saw Biking with Campbell and that I said to say hi. They're really nice in there. It's a great shop. There's heaps of stock on the floor. Some really good second-hand bikes in there too. So anyway, go and check them out. Show them some love. And then hopefully that will mean they'll show me some love. Okay, guys. Remember, ride fast, take chances, and God bless you all. Biking with Campbell. Bye. Okay. We'll see you later. You can go now. Thanks for coming. See you all later. Come back again, you all here. Cheers.